Most people equate being alone with a kind of failing. It's something they dread, something they actively avoid. But I need to tell you this. If you're a woman who finds herself without a large circle of friends, you are not failing. You are incredibly strong. You're occupying a territory few have the resilience to navigate. And if you hold fast to your path, the life you construct will be far more robust than anything pieced together from fleeting acquaintances. The quiet room. A point arrives when everything goes still. No incoming texts, no party invites, no constant stream of conversation, just your own company. That specific moment can feel more immense than any burden you've previously shouldered. The surroundings might feel like they're subtly shrinking. The very air can seem more substantial. You pick up your phone from sheer conditioning. Silence. You look again a few minutes down the line. Still silence. And a deep realization settles in. You feel overlooked. It appears everyone else is forging ahead, chasing their aspirations, fully immersed in their days. Meanwhile, you feel rooted in place, and it's natural to begin thinking there's an issue with you, as if you're somehow incomplete or lagging. Your brain, desperate for explanations, starts to spin narratives of lack, harsh stories whispering that you're not adequate, that you've somehow missed the mark, that you're unseen. In the quiet room, these narratives amplify. The stillness transforms into a looking glass, reflecting every vulnerability, every apprehension you've tried to evade. And right then, it's so easy to succumb, to embrace the most negative self-perceptions, to buckle under the pressure of your own uncertainties. But hear me clearly. That quiet you find so daunting isn't your adversary. It's a precious thing most individuals never truly get, or even worse, they get it but are too fearful to explore its depths. That quiet room is an open field, untouched and brimming with possibility. When no one is around to dictate who you should aim to be, when your thoughts aren't crowded by outside judgments, when the external clamor subsides, that's when something extraordinary occurs. For the very first time in ages, perhaps for the first time in your life, you are the one in control. You step into the role of architect for your own days. Every decision you make, every action you undertake, every chance you embrace, it's entirely yours. No external benchmarks to hit, no act to maintain, no crowd to win over. Simply you, your ambitions, your power of choice. This is the birthplace of genuine command. Not in the roar of an audience, but in the steadfast bravery required to build when there's no one applauding. Most individuals don't remain still long enough to witness this. They react with alarm at the initial onset of quiet. They grab for their devices, inundate their consciousness with diversions, pursue any kind of external approval to occupy that unsettling void. But fleeing the quiet room means fleeing your own essence, and you cannot construct anything authentic if you're perpetually in retreat. You must stand firm in that uneasy calm and confront all that you've been sidestepping. You have to encounter yourself in your rawest state, unembellished, exposed. That is the arena of transformation. That is how the most resilient individuals are forged. Not under the bright lights, but in the less visible spaces. Not when they're buoyed by admirers, but when they're beset by uncertainty and still resolve to trust in themselves. Because if you can flourish within the quiet room, if you can cultivate inner strength when no one is bearing witness, if you can offer yourself love when no applause is forthcoming, if you can persist when no one is urging you onward, then you will be an undeniable force when the world eventually shifts its gaze back to you. The reality is many people's capabilities are tied to the recognition they get. But when you've been shaped in stillness, when your sense of self has been meticulously assembled in solitude, you don't merely endure when the audience disperses. You excel. You cease to hunt for approval. You become its source. You no longer plead for a place. You construct your own. You no longer dread being by yourself. You embrace it, knowing the quiet room isn't barren at all. It's teeming with potential. Indeed, the quiet room initially feels isolating. It can seem like a penalty. It can feel unjust. But linger there a bit, sit with the unease, acknowledge its weight without seeking an immediate out. Because just past that initial surge of apprehension, something remarkable awaits. A version of you that is more resilient, more insightful, more commanding than you ever conceived. A self that doesn't rely on external noise to feel vibrant. A self that doesn't break when the spotlight moves. A self that builds, innovates, and ascends regardless of who might be observing. So, the next occasion you're in that stillness, when the invitations cease, when the messages dwindle, when the noise recedes, don't scramble to occupy it. Don't retreat. Don't seek to dull it. Remain. Remain long enough to perceive your own pulse again. Remain long enough to recall who you were before society tried to define you. Remain long enough to take up your tools and begin crafting your unique creation, step by step, learning by learning, truth by truth. Because the quiet room isn't where you get lost, it's where you are ultimately discovered. And upon grasping that, you'll see you were never left behind. You were being cultivated. Most individuals are petrified by quiet because they are petrified by their own inner landscape. They will go to great lengths to sidestep it. They immerse their existence in clamor. Talk about individuals who hold no real significance, a whirlwind of social events that merge into one, diversions that erode their precious time. They pursue loudness, operating under the notion that if their surroundings remain sufficiently agitated, perhaps, just perhaps, they won't have to confront the inquiries they're too apprehensive to address. They seek refuge in turmoil as if it were a heaven. But inwardly, they understand it's merely a defense because quiet dismantles the defenses. It brings forth the unvarnished reality. And for many, that reality is too profound to bear alone. When you lack companions, scheduled engagements, or insincere expressions to conceal yourself, you are compelled to engage with what is genuine. You come face to face with the one individual you cannot deceive, your own self. Not the curated image you project to the external world, not the diluted persona you adopt to conform, but the unrefined, pristine, stubbornly truthful version of you. The aspect that is aware of your deepest desires. The aspect that holds on to the aspirations you relinquished for acceptance. The aspect that yearns for substance while your external life pursues validation. And it isn't comfortable. It's disorganized. It can be confronting. It's daunting. But it is also the very point where all authenticity starts. The clamor they seek out is an opiate. A method to remain desensitized. A technique to postpone the inevitable moment of self-confrontation. Because sitting with yourself in stillness necessitates answers. Who are you without the digital affirmations, the constant communication, the social calendar? What principles do you uphold when no one is present to commend you? What are your true convictions when you're not striving for inclusion? Most cannot endure the gravity of these inquiries. They would opt for constant activity over genuine presence. They would prefer to saturate the atmosphere with trivial conversation rather than enrich their spirit with challenging truths. But you, if you possess the courage, will discern the prospect concealed within the quiet. You will perceive that every tranquil moment presents an opportunity to reconstruct, to redefine, to ascend. When the clamor subsides, when the pretenses are shed, when the superficial throngs disperse, you are faced with a decision. You can either succumb to alarm and hasten back to the frenzy, or you can remain. Remain with the unease, remain with the void, remain with the inquiries. Because remaining signifies confronting everything you've been sidestepping, and confronting it signifies finally achieving liberation. You will come to understand that many friendships you believed essential were never truly about genuine bonds. They were about diversion. Most social gatherings you thought you relished were never truly about happiness. They were about eluding your own self. Most dialogues you held onto tightly were never truly about personal development. They were about maintaining enough activity to avoid hearing your own uncertainties. Once you penetrate the facade of noise, you can never revert to unawareness. You will begin to yearn for quiet just as others yearn for notice. You will begin to prioritize depth over diversion, meaning over fleeting popularity, solitude over superficial affirmation. And this is the intriguing twist. The instant you cease to require the external clamor, you transform into someone others find captivating. Because authenticity is uncommon. Genuineness is inherently attractive. While they expend energy trying to discover themselves through external sources, you will already be standing firm, centered, and steadfast. You will cease to compromise yourself to gain invitations. You will cease to diminish yourself to gain acceptance. You will cease to alter your core self merely to evade loneliness. You will evolve into someone who doesn't just withstand the quiet. You will command it. The world doesn't require more clamor. It requires more individuals who can enter a bustling space and remain centered. It requires more individuals who can sit by themselves with their own thoughts and not disintegrate. It requires more individuals who are at ease being perceived as distinct, misconstrued, even momentarily forgotten because they possess self-knowledge beyond external masks. Quiet isn't your adversary. Loneliness isn't your sentence. They are your mentors. They pare away the superfluous. They dismantle the falsehoods. They bring you into direct contact with the sole person capable of altering your existence, you. And when you finally sit with your own self, without diversions, without filters, without clamor, you recognize the thing you were eluding all that time was never the quiet. It was your own magnificence awaiting its release. Being set apart is not a form of chastisement. It is a looking glass. And it's among the most truthful looking glasses you will ever encounter. It eliminates the clamor, the diversions, the applause, the reassuring nods of validation from others. It leaves you standing unadorned with no platform, no spotlight, no crowd to draw energy from. It is simply you, your inner dialogue, your apprehensions, your aspirations, your uncertainties. Being set apart reveals precisely who you are when no one is observing, when there's no one to make an impression on, no one to commend your endeavors, no one to affirm your being. It presents a reflection of the self you can no longer evade. And in that reflection, you will perceive everything: the resilience you had forgotten, the fears you never fully overcame, the vulnerabilities you concealed deeply, the dreams you once deemed unattainable. Being set apart doesn't embellish anything. It doesn't offer you flattery. It doesn't craft justifications for you. It merely presents what is genuine. And that is precisely where true change commences. Personal development seldom occurs amidst a crowd. Personal development seldom occurs when you are perpetually enveloped by validation and praise. Indeed, the crowd often hinders development because it provides just enough solace to remain stagnant. Genuine transformation unfolds in the untamed spaces, in the quiet, in the stillness, in the territories where few others venture. It occurs when you are compelled to sit with your own inner struggles, your own limitations, your own unrealized capabilities, when there is no one else to hold responsible, when there are no diversions left to shelter behind. That is when you are confronted with the unvarnished reality of who you are and who you possess the capacity to become. Most individuals dread being set apart because they dread what they will perceive in that looking glass. They dread discovering that they are not as resilient as they portrayed, that they have been pursuing someone else's definition of achievement, that their self-assurance was merely borrowed from the judgments of others. But if you can endure the unease, if you can fight the impulse to desensitize it, flee from it, or overwhelm it with noise, you will unearth something invaluable. You will discover the foundations of genuine resilience, genuine insight, genuine purpose. You will uncover the aspects of yourself that were obscured beneath layers of expectation and clamor. You will realize that everything you ever truly sought was never external, in the crowd. It was always contained within you, awaiting the quiet to liberate it. Being set apart is not a condemnation. It's an invitation. It's the universe gently guiding you away from the clamor, away from the diversions, to engage in a profoundly truthful dialogue with your spirit. It's posing the questions. Who are you when no one is observing? What convictions do you hold when there's no one to applaud you? What do you represent when standing alone is your sole alternative? These are not comforting inquiries. Their answers are not simple, but they form the bedrock of authentic power. Because when you emerge from being set apart, when you've grappled with your apprehensions, confronted your uncertainties, when you've gazed into that looking glass and remained steadfast, you return more formidable. Not superficially formidable, not notice me formidable, but a quiet, unshakable formidable. The kind of resilience that doesn't require observation to be genuine. The kind that can stand independently without apology. The kind that doesn't crumble the instant applause ceases. So, the next time life steers you toward being set apart, don't perceive it as chastisement. Perceive it as groundwork. Perceive it as a hallowed space where your authentic self can finally come forth. Perceive it as the crucible where your future is shaped. Because the most resilient, most commanding versions of ourselves are not cultivated when we're surrounded by throngs. They are cultivated when we stand alone in the untamed spaces and resolve to continue onward regardless. Without companions to lean on, without a cheering squad to encourage you when you falter, something remarkable unfolds. You are compelled to become your own rescuer. Initially, it feels harsh. It feels like desertion. It feels as if the universe has overlooked you. But concealed beneath that solitude is a treasure most individuals will never encounter. You evolve into the one who lifts yourself after a fall. You become the solace you seek, the strength that restores your footing, the inner voice that urges persist, even when no one else perceives it. You become your own illumination in the biting cold, your own steadfast point in the tempest, your own beacon when all around you dims. In the absence of an audience, you cultivate self-sufficiency. You cease to rely on borrowed fortitude. You stop assigning your value to individuals who could never genuinely comprehend your struggles. You learn the significance of standing firmly on your own, trusting your innate senses, and honoring your unique path without requiring observers. The quiet imparts wisdom that applause never could. It compels you to confront yourself at your most vulnerable and still offer yourself love. It compels you to maintain forward motion even when unobserved, unapplauded, unassisted. And in that demanding, beautiful journey, you construct a form of self-regard that no one can diminish. You cease to contort yourself for acceptance. You cease to diminish yourself for approval. You cease awaiting external consent to feel pride in who you are. Self-propelled, self-reliant, self-respecting. That is what you evolve into when the external world quiets. You recognize that validation, that intense craving for someone to affirm your adequacy, was always a snare. it was always a mirage. Your intrinsic worth was never intended to be a collaborative endeavor. It was never designed to be so delicate as to be granted to you, only to be revoked when someone's opinion shifted. Your worth was established the moment you came into being, unbreakable, indisputable, unaffected by the judgments of others. Most individuals spend their existence attempting to mend their vulnerabilities with external affirmation. They pursue digital likes, commendations, and superficial companionships, hoping the clamor will fill the internal void. But it never achieves this, because genuine resilience, genuine self-assurance, genuine tranquility, these cannot be bestowed upon you. They must be constructed from within. They must be earned during the solitary hours, in the private confrontations, in the instances when surrender would be straightforward, but you choose otherwise. You choose to advocate for yourself, not due to any observers, not due to any rewards, but because you have ultimately determined that you are inherently worth advocating for. When that transformation occurs, when you no longer require anyone's endorsement to feel self-assured, when you no longer seek applause to feel vibrant, when you no longer crave the nods and smiles and handshakes, you become an undeniable force. You enter spaces with a different bearing. You make choices with a different clarity. You navigate life with a subtle authority that cannot be feigned and cannot be disturbed. Others will sense it. They may not always grasp it, but they will sense it. Because resilience constructed in solitude leaves an impression that the world cannot overlook. So, if you are currently alone, meticulously rebuilding yourself from the ground up, do not view it with bitterness. Welcome it. Immerse yourself in it. Because while some are preoccupied with chasing affirmation, you are preoccupied with constructing something they can never dismantle. Unshakable resilience. And one day, when the clamor resumes, when the throngs reassemble, when the invitations begin to reappear, you will not require any of it to stand with dignity. You will already possess a firm knowledge of who you are, and that caliber of resilience that is enduring. Numerous women cultivate extensive networks of friends, crafting social spheres so vast and active that, from an external viewpoint, they appear profoundly cherished, entirely bolstered, and ceaselessly interconnected. But external views can be misleading, because when significant challenges arise, when life presents acute loss, disloyalty, profound sorrow, or setbacks, they often discover they are completely on their own. Those many friends are conspicuously absent. The device that once constantly signaled with endless communications goes silent. The invitations cease, the cheerful expressions vanish, and what lingers is the resonant emptiness of connections founded on mutual ease, not genuine dedication. Superficial companionships provide comfort during periods of calm. They offer the semblance of belonging, of being acknowledged, of being esteemed. But circumstances shift, and when difficult times arrive, when life necessitates something authentic, something lasting, shallow foundations cannot withstand the upheaval. Genuine camaraderie is distinct, authentic connection is scarce. It doesn't arise from a place of need, from attempting to fill internal voids with noise and notice. It emerges from a sense of completeness, from inner integrity, from a position so firmly established in self-regard, so securely anchored in self-value, that you no longer grasp at individuals out of a fear of solitude. When you are inwardly complete, when you have fashioned a life, a perspective, and a spirit that doesn't falter when left to stand alone, your magnetism changes. You cease to attract those who are merely seeking to gain. You cease to engage with those who only appear to deplete your vitality. You begin to emit a different sort of fortitude, a subtle command that discourages the superficial and beckons the authentic. You start to encounter individuals who perceive you, truly perceive you, not as an embellishment to their existence, not as a convenience or a means to an end, but as a resilient individual standing firmly in her own right. They acknowledge the struggles you've faced, the tempests you've weathered, the marks you bear without apology. And they do not recoil. They do not flee. They do not try to diminish you to enhance their own comfort. They respect your strength because they too have navigated their own trials. Opting for depth over mere company isn't about spurning individuals. It's about spurning anything that poses a risk of making you feel diminished again. It's about declining to accept half-hearted companionships, performative interactions, and vacuous dialogues that leave your spirit unfulfilled. It's about understanding that your time, your vitality, your essence are invaluable and not everyone is entitled to them. It's about valuing yourself sufficiently to await the kind of companionships that don't demand you delete your true self just to be accepted. And yes, the journey toward depth is more solitary initially. You will experience periods where you navigate largely by yourself. You will have evenings when you question if genuine connection is even achievable in a world that often lauds the superficial. But maintain your direction. Have faith in the unfolding, because what you are constructing, the substance you are instilling in your life, will eventually become the very element that attracts spirits resonant with your own. Spirits who do not wish to exploit you, who do not wish to alter you, who simply desire to walk alongside you as equals, as fellow resilient beings, as reflections of a shared inner fire. The plain fact is, it is preferable to walk solo than to engage with people who fail to see your authentic self. Better to craft a life that feels abundant and whole in solitude than to squander your vitality bolstering connections that would disintegrate the moment life became challenging. Choosing depth over mere company isn't about being set apart, it's about personal ascent. It's about rising into a version of yourself so genuine, so commanding, so complete that the right individuals cannot help but be drawn to you. And when they arrive, you won't feel the need to grasp. You won't feel the need to pursue. You won't feel the need to affirm your value. They will perceive it because it was never concealed. It was merely awaiting someone with the strength to acknowledge it. There will be times when solitude feels like an oppressive garment you cannot shed, times when it adheres to you, permeates your being, and makes each moment seem more protracted, more frigid, more burdensome. In such instances, the urge to grasp at anything, anyone, just to feel a bit less alone becomes potent. You might consider lowering your expectations, making concessions you vowed you'd never entertain, inviting individuals into your sphere who are not worthy of your presence. You might tell yourself that some company is superior to none, but you must resist, combat that urge with all your might, because solitude is a passing phase. Compromising is a lasting state. Yielding to less than you merit merely to quell the momentary ache of being alone will ultimately demand a far greater price than you anticipate. It will gradually erode your spirit. It will quietly diminish your self-regard through minor capitulations that appear trivial at first, but eventually leave you questioning how you became so disconnected from yourself. Opting for superficial ties might alleviate the surface discomfort of solitude, but it aggravates a much more significant injury, the injury of betraying your own essence. Each time you accept less than your core knows it is worthy of, you inadvertently teach yourself that your necessities, your principles, your aspirations are open to negotiation. Solitude, regardless of its intensity, is a particular period. It arrives and departs, much like atmospheric conditions. But constructing an existence with individuals who don't genuinely perceive you, who don't genuinely appreciate you, who deplete your vitality and dim your inner light, that is a predicament with enduring repercussions. It is far more manageable to weather a solitary evening than to extricate yourself from a life woven together with compromises you never truly desired. The discomfort of temporary solitude is a trial, a proving ground. It inquires of you: will you maintain your integrity? Will you remain loyal to what you recognize you deserve, even when it is painful? Uphold your principles, not from a place of arrogance, but from a profound, unshakable reverence for the existence you are meticulously crafting. Preserve your spirit, safeguard it as the invaluable entity it is. You are not meant to clutter your life with insubstantial company merely to muffle your apprehensions. You are meant to construct something authentic, something enduring, something that resonates deeply with your soul. Genuine connection requires time. True companionship necessitates patience. It insists that you traverse the wilderness of solitude without succumbing. It calls upon you to believe with unwavering tenacity that you are worthy of the caliber of affection, the caliber of friendships that do not necessitate you to diminish or compromise yourself. So, when the allure of compromise presents itself, and it undoubtedly will, confront it with fortitude. Confront it with the recollection of every instance you compromised and subsequently felt regret. Confront it with the clear image of the life you are actively building. Allow solitude to refine you, not to weaken you. Allow it to bring clarity to your desires, not to muddle them. Because the individual who maintains their integrity during solitary periods is the individual who later experiences a life rich with significance. A life where every bond is founded on truth, not on fear. Where every connection mirrors the respect you initially extended to yourself. And that life is worth every solitary evening required to construct it. You cannot manufacture self-regard. You cannot feign inner serenity. You cannot counterfeit resilience. Regardless of how meticulously someone attempts to project an image, authenticity recognizes authenticity. Either you have endured the crucible or you have not. Either you have sat alone with your apprehensions, confronted them directly, and resolved not to be shattered, or you have concealed them beneath noise, diversions, and insincere applause. There is no simpler path. The kind of profound change that makes others sense your presence before you utter a single word emerges only from the struggles you engage in when no one else is observing. This solitude you experience, this ache within you, this quiet that at times feels as if it could entirely consume you, it is not a form of chastisement. It is a hallowed crucible, a space where the inauthentic aspects of you are consumed by fire and what is genuine is fortified. Every day you endure within it and refuse to yield, refuse to retreat to the known, refuse to accept the superficial, refuse to desensitize yourself with clamor. You are reshaping yourself into something exceptional, commanding, and indisputable. You are evolving into the kind of individual who doesn't merely weather tempests. You become the tempest. Your resilience was not acquired from others, it was constructed, forged into being by every solitary night, every tear you dried alone, every aspiration you kept vibrant. Most individuals will never comprehend the true toll of that kind of transformation. They will observe the self-assurance, the serenity, the quiet authority you possess, and they will presume it was always inherent. They will not perceive the nights you waged internal battles. They will not perceive the moments you nearly surrendered but chose to persist. They will not perceive the hours spent grappling with uncertainty and apprehension. But you will be aware. You will know precisely what it entailed. And that profound, unshakable awareness will be the bedrock of an existence that no one can wrest from you. Every moment you persevere, you are becoming someone commanding, someone indelible, someone who doesn't just motivate others, you stir something profound within them. And one day, you will survey your life and understand you didn't just endure your solitude. You transformed it. The most crucial developments unfold in quiet. They occur when no one is observing. No one applauds the woman who reads deep into the night, foregoing rest to broaden her understanding. No one presents accolades to the woman who opts for self-control over immediate gratification, declining transient satisfactions to cultivate something enduring. No one commends the woman who silently alters the internal narrative shaping her thoughts, teaching herself to think with greater clarity and believe with greater conviction. There are no public acknowledgements for mending your own injuries, no awards for confronting your inner shadows and choosing to become improved rather than embittered. No one witnesses the quiet struggles, the small everyday decisions to speak to herself with kindness. But these are the triumphs that hold the greatest significance. Resilience constructed in quiet becomes unshakable amidst clamor. A woman who cultivates herself during unobserved hours is a woman who cannot be fractured when life puts her to the test. She doesn't fall apart under criticism because she no longer relies on the external world to affirm her being. She doesn't lose her bearings in turmoil because she has already anchored herself in self-discipline. Most individuals will not perceive the nights she felt like quitting, the nights she wept but then rose again, the instances she questioned everything but resolved to believe nonetheless. The world doesn't honor the unseen triumphs, but they forge a resilience that requires no announcement and a power that needs no recognition to exist. When you build yourself discreetly, you establish a foundation that cannot be unsettled. So, when your development feels unacknowledged, when your advancement feels imperceptible, recall this: the efforts you make in private are what equip you to radiate in public. The unseen cultivation isn't futile, it's sacred, it's distinguishing you, it's constructing something within you that clamor could never fashion. And one day, effortlessly, you'll enter spaces with a presence so commanding that even the most strident voices will subside, because genuine development doesn't need to proclaim itself. It simply is. Some individuals will fail to comprehend you. Regardless of how purposefully you act or how profoundly you experience life, they simply won't grasp it. Their opinions are not your concern. Their lack of understanding is not your burden to carry. You were never intended to conform to restrictive frameworks devised by limited perspectives. You were never meant to dilute your essence so that others might feel more at ease. As you refine your being, you will inevitably move beyond certain social circles. You will sense a growing distance between yourself and individuals you once considered companions. You will find yourself speaking with greater economy because your words now possess more substance. You will observe how superficial discussions drain you and how attempting to fit in feels more like restriction than genuine belonging. Not everyone is destined to accompany you on your entire journey. Limited perspectives will mistake your earnestness for aloofness, confuse your concentration with conceit. But you are aware of the quiet battles you endure to become this iteration of yourself. You know the personal cost of cultivating a mind that doesn't falter at the initial indication of solitude. You owe no one a justification for the resilience you had to forge in private. Continue your path. Continue to ascend. Not everyone merits a prime position to witness your evolution. Adherence to your former self is an insufficient basis for remaining connected to individuals who resist growth. You are permitted to outpace those who opt to remain confined. And when they offer criticism, when they engage in gossip, when they remark that you've altered, simply offer a smile. Allow them their discourse. Allow them their misinterpretations. Because while they are preoccupied with analyzing your life, you are actively constructing it. While they cling to outdated perceptions of you, you are venturing into new dimensions they cannot even fathom. You are not aloof, you are clear. You are not withdrawn, you are selective. You are not overly earnest, you are too dedicated to squander your vitality on what does not align with your purpose. Grand aspirations necessitate a grand spirit, and grand spirits will invariably feel too substantial for limited perspectives. So, safeguard your vitality, protect your peace, and never offer an apology for your growth, even if it entails a period of solitary advancement. You are not here to be comprehended by all. You are here to live an existence that only a select few will genuinely recognize. There is a distinct form of command that arises from the knowledge that you can navigate life alone, a subtle, unseen command. When you can venture into quiet to the extent that only the sound of your own steps returns to you and you feel no alarm, you have faith in your own capacity, you have faith in your own heart, you have faith in the existence you are meticulously constructing. When you can navigate life alone, it alters the entire landscape. It signifies that when you opt to walk in tandem with someone, it is from a position of fortitude, not apprehension. You are not clinging due to a terror of solitude. You are not diminishing yourself to conform to an existence that does not resonate with your true self. You are selecting with freedom, with power, with consciousness. You are affirming, I can stand independently, I am complete independently, but I choose to share this particular journey with you because it is my desire, not my necessity. A unique sense of serenity envelops you once you grasp that you don't require external validation for your inner power. You don't need continuous reassurance to trust your chosen path. You don't need to be supported when the way becomes arduous because you have already learned how to sustain yourself through more challenging passages. You cease pursuing individuals who do not appreciate you. You cease compromising yourself to remain included. Instead, you become profoundly, unshakably anchored in your authentic self. You begin to acknowledge that anyone who walks beside you is a gift, not an essential, a preference, not a support. The remarkable aspect of navigating life alone is that it hones your perception. It dispels the haze of distraction. You start to discern with clarity who truly merits a place in your life and who was merely occupying a void that no longer exists within you. You are forging an inheritance, even if it seems imperceptible at this moment. Each instance you prioritize self-regard over facile affirmation, each instance you honor your soul's calling above the world's clamor, each instance you opt for solitude over superficial association, you are imprinting your path, imprints that not only denote your passage but also illuminate the way for those who will tread after you. You are demonstrating to succeeding generations what it means to stand with dignity without needing a multitude to lean upon. You are instructing without uttering words, guiding without making demands, motivating without putting on a display. You are affirming, quietly yet indisputably, that a woman's intrinsic value is not gauged by the quantity of individuals she can attract but by the profundity, the self-discipline, the unshakable resilience she cultivates within herself. And be assured the world observes even when it feigns indifference. The young individual feeling out of sync, the woman who has been labeled as too intense, the spirits who are silently yearning for the liberty to live authentically, they are all observing. Your bravery tacitly grants them permission to ascend. Your example whispers to them that it is achievable. A woman who attains mastery over solitude is a woman who attains mastery over all things. Her serenity is inviolable. Her pursuits are relentless. Her genuineness is unparalleled. She doesn't enter spaces hoping to be singled out. She enters already having chosen herself. She doesn't diminish herself to be more acceptable. She stands in her complete presence whether it discomfits others or not. She doesn't cling to associations out of apprehension. She forms them from a place of abundance, from veracity, from completeness. Every firm limit you establish, every elevated standard you uphold, every solitary evening you navigate with composure, they are all elements in a narrative that declares a woman's worth was never intended for negotiation. Persist. Because one day, when another woman confronts her own challenging passage and feels she cannot continue, she will discover your imprints. And because of you, she will.